Hey everybody, sorry for the technical issue. Cutting out the last video where I wanted to conclude this socialization video is for how to think through when you're reading about socialization differences across class, gender, and race. And there's a lot of different ways to think through this. One, just in general, how of course the socialization experience is going to be different depending on what social class you're born into, what your race, what your gender, um, for a lot of different reasons. For class, for example, the social class you're born into is going to determine what you see as possible goals. For example, if you're born into a family and both parents are highly achieving, they have college education, they have accrued wealth and built up wealth along with good steady income, they are probably going to socialize you into the belief that you, one, can attend college. It is attainable for you. You should do it because that will translate to an array of access to opportunities, and that it can be done despite the high price tag. For many working class families, many poor families, many families just simply look at the price tag of college and it just seems unattainable. Much less the reality. If you grow up in a family that has not earned college degrees before, just the process itself is very complex and confusing. The price tag barrier, of course, is huge. And for all these various reasons, the socialization has a big impact on what you see as future opportunities that are possible and likely. And that is going to have a major impact on later life outcomes. If you're constantly being told, hey, college is probably going to provide you opportunities, but nobody in our family has gotten a college degree. Look how much it costs. We can't even envision how you'd be able to afford it, much less all the lack of access to resources that you're going to have throughout your life growing up, poor or working class. Just resources that are not available to you that are commonly, if not always, available to families that are upper middle class, that are affluent, wealthy, that have a history of college education. And that socialization experience is going to look different. I think the best way to think through this right now is hopefully everyone is paying attention or participating in the current social movement, the uprising, the protest, and we're starting to have better cultural conversations around how socialization looks different across race. And one of the easiest examples of that is going to be understanding how growing up being white and growing up in a white household. One, you're going to be told if you work hard and put in the effort, you are going to have opportunities, and that is true because being white in America means you're going to have access to more opportunities than individuals that are not white. And this does mean you still have to work hard. You still have to take advantage of those opportunities. You still are going to face struggles. However, if you do work hard, there will be access to opportunities, and you're socialized into this understanding and this reality. For example, for many Black children born in America, that has not been the case and continues still not to be the case, because you can work hard, you can be every bit as qualified, every bit as smart, every bit as talented, but you're going to face structural barriers that your white counterparts will not face. You are going to face day-to-day barriers. You're going to face discrimination every day that is going to impact your ability to succeed in this world, and you're just going to face less access to opportunities. And so you're going to be socialized and grow up understanding this reality and feeling like you're in a different America. And that's just a mere reality, and that's a mere fact and reality of socialization and how it differs across race. And just want to conclude with this idea, just because you're going to be hearing this more, so you understand it, and you're probably hearing more about the talk. And for white families, the talk usually involves your parents awkwardly talking to you about sex. For Black families, Black mothers especially have been telling white mothers for a long time that they have to have a different talk with their children. And that talk is about how to survive every day, but particularly how to survive in interactions with law enforcement, the individuals that are not only have not only sworn an oath to protect and serve the community, but whose salaries are funded by the tax dollars of those in this community in order to protect and serve them. And this socialization experience is going to look very different if you are being taught at a young age, hey, you are likely going to be profiled. You are going to experience racial bias. You're going to experience disproportionate contact with law enforcement, and law enforcement's implicit biases is likely to mean that they're more likely to react to you in terms of using force, and sometimes deadly force, as we're seeing with videos around the country. And so for for black children growing up in this reality, they are taught just little things that white children, growing up as a white man, and never had to think about. For example, black mothers have been telling white mothers for years that they have to teach their children, hey, if you get pulled over by law enforcement, have your registration, your license available, so you do not have to reach for anything in your car that could then provoke some kind of use of force or deadly use of force. In fact, many black mothers have told us about how they tell their black children, when you drive, go on the second you start driving, already take that stuff out. That is just an everyday stressor and strain that being white in America you do not experience, and white parents probably didn't even think to even bring that up in their socialization process. But not only is this a part of the socialization process for most black children in America, it is absolutely necessary for many of them in order to survive. And this just tells you a little bit about how socialization is going to look vastly different across race. You all probably have a pretty good handle on how socialization looks different across gender, and we're having better cultural conversations around what that means. But just the easy example to that is think about how you were taught from a very young age, what it means to be a boy, what it means to be a girl, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what is manly, what is feminine, all these things that are socially constructed, and that we are taught, and this is going to have an array of factors. For example, it's going to impact, whether you choose to engage in sports or not, and what sports, and what you just going to shape your preferences when it comes to dress and toys, and things like that. But also, it has a lot of later life outcomes as well, especially around steering and how boys and girls are steered into different careers. And this is a key part of the socialization process. And an example I give in the lecture notes that is always one that's close to me, is, my both of my sisters are physicians. Many of you in this class are training to be or studying to be a physician. She learned early on my older sister learned early on in her medical school, the socialization, the re-socialization was going on in medical school, that there were certain specialties that were specialties for men and that were off limits to her. She didn't buy into that, luckily, and she went into orthopedic surgery, which is dominated by men, to the point where she's had to deal with various bouts of sexual harassment throughout her time working in the medical field. But also, she got blatantly asked on an interview one time, why are you interested in this specialty? You're a woman. And that is something that, and like I said, she's extremely successful at what she does, but she had to overcome barriers that men in her profession didn't have to face. And in terms of socialization, it's very easy that despite her wanting to do this specialty and despite her being absolutely amazing at it, she easily could have ended up in a different specialty because she was being steered and socialized early on that, hey, this is for men, this is for women. And we were having better conversations around how that can be really detrimental, especially for young girls, when we tell you that certain things are off limits, or that certain things are for boys. And obviously it's crap, and we're finally making needed change to it. But I want you from, this class to understand how socialization, we talk about it in general, but we know it doesn't happen the same across your social class, across your race, across your gender, across your sexuality. And that is really, really important. And I think you all will be able to think through a lot of good examples of that. And also how, when we're trying to break down, like, for example, modern gender stereotypes, how still the progress we make, it's still met with resistance, and why is it met with resistance, and how hard it is to break those things down. If you have any more questions about this section, always contact me. If not, I will be jumping into the next section in a minute. Have a great evening.